The trick. You can't do that. What do you mean I can't? How hard could it be? Boy meets girl. They fall in love. Something happens to keep them apart. True love triumphs in the end. Cash exchanges hands. She gave a snort. She was having a great time. You don't have what it takes. No skill, no imagination, no experience. Plus, you have no idea what women want. Anyone could look at us and see that. If you tried to write a romance novel, it would probably turn out to be something between a comedy and a tragedy. I swear, where do you get these goofy ideas? I ended the chat due to a difficult encounter, but I was unable to get it out of my head. It was a Nicholas Sparks film that started the argument. We have Netflix, which is most likely the best value for entertainment available. With the exception of the most recent films and the current season of any series, you can virtually see anything that has been filmed since motion pictures and television first came on demand for less than $10. I had seen an interview with Nicholas on Sunday Morning, which is my all-time favorite CBS television program. They discussed his large earnings from his labor and gave a brief biography of him. The following week, Sheila showed her one of his films, and I informed her about the interview and his considerable value. She raised her gaze from the television. Too bad you don't have talent enough to do something like that. I bet I could do it if I wanted to bad enough. It was on, without warning. Please, just stop, don't embarrass yourself. I attempted to move on. You're probably right. It began quite early on in our union. Woodcarvers have always impressed me. I was watching a PBS program about German woodcarvers around the time of Christmas. Although they carved modest skulls in a part about the apprenticeship program, their work was nevertheless complex. While heading to the store with her sisters, Sheila stopped by. Her eyes were fixed on the television. They're really good, aren't they? Yes, they are. I've always thought I'd like to try it. All she did was roll her eyes. You can't do that. It takes years, and I don't think you have the talent. Her occasional dismissiveness really got on my nerves. I don't mean that. I mean simple things, like figures and heads. That's where they start their apprentices at. Well, good luck with that. Be back in a couple hours. As she walked out the door, she was giggling. I went outside and retrieved a block of cherry wood off our woodpile, sharpened two of my favorite pocket knives, and began carving after spreading a thick layer of newspaper on our dining room table. After consuming another block of wood in 3 hours, I managed to create a really passable Santa head with a flowing beard. After tidying the dining room and placing everything on a placemat in the middle of the table, I left to take care of errands that always seemed to build up. After arriving home, she entered the living room and held her head in her hands for about an hour. Where did this come from? I carved it while you were shopping. Do you like it? She picked it up with both hands. It has a certain, what's the word? Yeah, rustic appeal. I like it. So, where did you get it? Off the woodpile. I really did carve it. She laughed and gave me a cheek kiss. If you say so, honey. I had to make her believe something by carving it in front of her. After a decade, my mother required a new deck. Sheila laughed once more when I showed her the plans I intended to employ. You don't have the skills to build something like that. Don't try it, you'll waste a bunch of money and time. I had moved positions, first working as a forklift driver and then as an inventory coordinator for a producer of modular homes. It was a role that was essentially mine alone. We didn't construct prefabricated homes. Every construction we did followed the customer's plans. Naturally, we provided our customers with basic floor designs that they could modify to their own specifications. Along with everything you could imagine, we also constructed offices, apartment complexes, and condominiums in specific areas. It was pricey, especially if you had leftovers, to customize everything this way. While some items were generic and could be utilized in another structure, many weren't, thus we would be stuck using them. Since I handled a lot of the materials, I could see it and immediately began offering recommendations. Up until we hired a new plant manager, they were largely scoffed at. His primary worry was waste, so when he saw some of my recommendations, things started to flow, and before I knew it, I was getting a significant raise and an office instead of a forklift. In other words, no, I lacked the necessary skill set, but I worked with guys who did every day. And in all those years of watching, I did not come away empty-handed. I built the deck and employed one guy to assist and advise me. When the smoke cleared, my mom had a 3-tier deck with matching flower boxes and handmade railings. It didn't come together quickly, and I made a few blunders. Sheila only ever stated that she desired a larger one in her comments. I never had time to construct it. Here, don't misunderstand me. I'm not a moron. There are many things in the world that I cannot accomplish. I can't program your computer or fix your automobile, but I'll try if I really believe I can. I had my share of setbacks, of course, but I like to think that I gained just as much insight from them as I did from my victories. To show that I could, I made the decision to write a book. I conducted my research first. I read a lot back then. Every week, I often read 2 or 3 books. Everything but romances, fantasies, how-to, biographies, histories, westerns, and classics. I filled my bag to the brim with Harlequin romances when I visited the nearby thrift stores. In the true sense, they were having an all-you-can-stuff bag sale, with each bag costing $1. I also purchased a couple of books by Nora Roberts, 2 by Nicholas Sparks, and a few more successful but lesser-known romance writers. The more well-known authors were fine, but I just wasn't into it. The paperback's mind-numbingly repetitive topics nearly drove me to give up. I'd seen enough pictures in my mind. I spent a considerable amount of time writing notes, sketching out characters, stories, and possible location, until I thought I was ready. Sheila was accustomed to my computer usage. I was still learning how to use our late-adopted one when we acquired it. She occasionally used it, primarily to search for how-to videos and recipes. Email and Facebook held no fascination for her. I had to convince my son to set it up so I could write because I wasn't feeling well. 4 or 5 days a week, I put in 2 to 4 hours of work on the book. Before I thought it was readable, I went back and redrew the majority of it multiple times. The entire process took 4 months. It was so dense when I printed it off that I had to divide it into 3 or 4 chapters each binder. 5 were needed. In October, I gave Sheila the first binder. "What's this?" "It's the book you said I couldn't write. Read it and see what you think." Throwing it onto the coffee table, she did. "I'll look at it later. There's a movie I want to finish. Do you want a pizza tonight?" I didn't feel let down. I was getting a little used to it after all these years. She worked at the nearby hospital as a nurse. She was essentially a babysitter for new nurses, making sure they didn't harm anyone, even though her official job was training supervisor. She worked 10 a.m., split shifts, so that she could work both shifts till 7 p.m. She would work a couple graveyard shifts every few weeks to keep everyone in line. 4 days a week, I worked from 7 to 5:30, unless there was an urgent deadline or I needed to get ready for a special assignment. I made most of the meals when I got home over 2 hours earlier. Having worked in various restaurants after high school, I have a fondness for cooking. Usually it was simple food, but in the past year I've started experimenting a little bit and have found a lot of recipes online. She liked what I produced most of the time, but not every time. She hardly ever offered to assist with cleanup. Nothing I did or said seemed to matter as we drifted apart. I told myself that I envisioned myself as a single man. It was not a circumstance that appealed to me at my age. Our romantic relationships had waned to once a week or so. Spread it out and get it over with, without emotion. Dinners with loved ones and the rare weekend getaway didn't appear to affect her. Age, poor health, and diminished libido were her excuses. "If I didn't know any better, I'd think you're getting some on the side." She choked on her tea and launched into a tirade about my lack of empathy. However, she started a romantic conversation the following evening. It felt fantastic because it had been along, but it sucked because I knew she was just doing it to appease me. The following day, I sent her some flowers, and when she arrived home, she kissed me sweetly. Our flirting intensified momentarily before she reverted to her usual behavior. I made the decision to accept our advanced age and acknowledge that, in the end, she didn't care as much about it as I did. She never did find time to read the book. 2 weeks later, I removed it off the coffee table, tucked it away with the other folders, and promptly forgot about it. Our 17-year-old granddaughter spent a weekend staying with us. That occurred roughly every 2 months, when their parents want some alone time or a quick getaway. When her parents divorced when she was 14, she actually lived with us for a year. It wasn't a healthy atmosphere for her. The divorce was excessively lengthy, petty, and acrimonious. After her father was discovered to have cheated, her mother chose scorched earth over mediation. They fought bitterly over a dog that neither of them wanted. I found myself with him in the end. Her mother was married again 5 months after it ended. It appears that she had slept with him long before the divorce and was pregnant. This resulted in an additional burst of pyrotechnics. Finally, our son wound up with my granddaughter. He had recently made the acquaintance of someone who appeared sincere. Our granddaughter Kelsey seemed to enjoy her company. We are grateful for little miracles. My relationship with my son and ex-daughter-in-law was strained for a period after I chastised them for their action and how they had damaged Kelsey. Sheila adopted the daughter-in-law's stance, stating that she couldn't stand liars and mistreating her own son. I was shocked that she didn't adjust her attitude when it became apparent that she had also toyed around. He must have driven her there given her status. We were grilling as I was finishing up dinner. Or rather, Kelsey was coming to an end. That girl likes to grill. She must have a lot of suppressed masculine genes. Whoever she chose to share her life with would be extremely fortunate. She talked endlessly about her ambitions for college, her boyfriend, and her school pals. Both parents were practically penniless after the acrimonious divorce, and attending college was becoming increasingly unachievable. I broke through and offered to cover the costs provided she attended the community college in the area for her first year. I refused to spend so much money on a pointless party, as too many of my friends had saw their children major in one. She could transfer to whatever state college she desired if she performed well at community college. Both parents could cover the cost of housing and board, and I would cover the tuition. I got into a heated argument with Sheila over it. She wanted to hold on to the cash to supplement our retirement. Ultimately, I came out on top. She was not a loser with grace. Checking Facebook on her computer, Kelsey sat down. "How on earth are they able to discuss so much?" she asked, examining the folders I had tucked under the desk. What's this? Sheila had come along. She chuckled. That's your grandfather's version of the great American romance novel. Really, Gramps? You wrote a book. Can I read it? I chuckled. Sure, at least someone should read it. Sheila tensed up. I'll read it, I promise. I've just been so busy lately. We spent a few hours chatting while we consumed the steaks. She had to get ready for work because it was her turn to ride herd on the trainees on 3rd. While Kelsey scrubbed the dishes, I cleaned the grill. We had seen a film, and it was undoubtedly one starring Nicholas Sparks. I kissed her goodbye, went to bed, and warned her not to stay up too late. Close the door behind you. Being elderly comes with a curse. You hardly get a full night's sleep. My clock said 3:30 when I woke up and realized I had to go. I went around the house afterward to make sure Kelsey hadn't left too many lights on. She was sobbing in the living room while a reading lamp was the only light on. I dashed over. Kelsey, honey, what's wrong? She jumped from the couch and gave me the strongest embrace she could. I was becoming anxious. It's so crying beautiful. Did you really write this? Glancing down, I saw that she was carrying a binder. Yes, baby. I wrote it. It's not a big deal, and it'll be here tomorrow. Go to bed. Sure enough, she took the binders instead. When I finally lay down again, I gave it some thought and was happy to see that she loved it. After giving it some thought, I concluded that it was ideal for a girl of that age. The story did not include any bonding. Things were suggested rather than explicitly stated because I was unsure of how to do it and didn't feel comfortable doing it. A month elapsed. Sheila and I started dating more frequently, and she started to resemble the lady I married. The telephone rang. It was a man I had about 40 years ago in high school. Pete, it's me, Jimmy Page. Remember me? Yeah, been a long time, Zep. You weren't at the last reunion, so it's been what, almost 20 years. How's life treating you? He chuckled that laugh that annoyed the hell out of me. Certain things are always the same. Since he shared the same name as Led Zeppelin's guitarist, we dubbed him Zep. At first, we referred to him as Zeppelin, but naturally, that became Zep. Oh, I'm fine. Look, I want to talk about your book. He surprised me by coming out of nowhere. What book? That romance novel you wrote. It's pretty good. How were copies of that obtained? I was observing Kelsey. She had spent the night there. Upon hearing the term romantic novel, she at once discovered something intriguing in the magazine she was perusing. I saw it with my granddaughter. I was shocked to learn it was you. You never know, I suppose. My goal is to publish. My small publishing enterprise is mine. I could treat you fairly. I could never get rid of the notion that I could never trust Zep. I don't know, I just wrote it to prove I could. He persisted in trying to get me to commit for a few minutes, and it dawned on me that perhaps he was filming the exchange. Zep, let me consider it. I'll get back to you. He continued to press for a commitment as I hung up. As soon as I hung up, I hit the computer and discovered that, yes, he indeed owned a publishing firm, albeit a vanity press, the kind where, if you're willing to fund it, they'll publish anything and then take a percentage of the revenues. It was a win-win situation for the publisher and a shady one for the writer. Where's my book, Kelsey? Give up waffles. What location is it? Well, I still have it, but I kind of copied it for my friends to read, and they copied it for their friends to read, and Angie gave a copy to her cousin across the county, so it's currently circulating through that high school. I'm getting pestered by everyone for your next one. I apologize, Grandpa, but it's excellent. It would be best if you publicized it. I made an attempt to frown. Although I'm not too happy about it, I never did say it couldn't be shared. We'll just refer to it as a teaching moment. Furthermore, I'm not sure if I should publish it and have no idea how to do so. You're not aware of its excellence, are you? Allow me to investigate this for you. There is no harm in it. Perhaps Nicholas Sparks ought to be keeping a watchful eye on him. We laughed after I gave her a hug, and I completely forgot about it. After 2 weeks, she gave me a call. Congrats, I succeeded. I sent your work to the 4 best romance publishers online. According to every study, that is the best course of action. You had best dedicate it to me when it strikes. We both chuckled, and I assured her that I would. A week later, a virus from a game website caused my machine to crash. From my research, I've learned that the worst websites are those that offer recipes, games, and dirty websites. I suppose more people would like to eat good and play games than to observe strangers. My company was severely impacted by the crisis. It is far easier to purchase a foreclosure for 2/3 of its market worth than to pay for a new one. Gradually, we reached the point where we had to implement rotational layoffs. I eventually snapped when Sheila started whining about my being nosy, but there was nothing I could do about it. Sheila, consider this. In 4 years, both of us intend to retire. You won't even be able to enjoy the convenience of working. Then, what are you going to do? Subconsciously, she uttered the word volunteer and turned to leave. I didn't have a strong desire for a new computer. I thought that someone would have a great deal by Christmas, so I spent my time doing things around the house that I had never had time to accomplish before. I had just gotten home from a week of work and was half listening when the answering machine rang. Mr. Nora Holmes from Norbert Publishing here, Smith. We would like to discuss your book with you, but we haven't been able to get in touch with you by email. My first words on picking up the phone were, hello, I just walked through the door. Her voice wasn't particularly cordial. Why don't you answer your email? I'm sorry, my computer is down. I haven't replaced it yet. What? How do you live without a computer? That's ridiculous. It would be in your best interest to replace it immediately, especially if you're going to do business with us. Yes, you're probably right. Am I? Doing business, I mean. That remains to be seen, Mr. Smith. We're interested, but it needs polish, and you need to shorten it by about 30,000 words. If you agree to work with us on it, maybe we'll offer you a contract. At the very least, it'll help you try to peddle it to the next publisher. What do I need to do? Get a computer. You'll need a good one. We really don't like making phone calls, so keep up with your emails. We're sending your manuscript back. Follow directions, listen to what the editors say, and send it back to us. What a rude woman. She did not bid us farewell. I had my son set up the new computer I purchased. I set up a password-protected personal email account for him. The publisher received this one. If I did end up getting published, I wanted to surprise them all. The manuscript appeared to have been dipped in crimson ink when it was returned. Later on, I learned that the majority of romantic books have between 70 and 110,000 words. My own had slightly more than 140. I made multiple attempts to reduce it to slightly over 100,000 as they advised, but ultimately came up with a final product that was just over 120. It took them another round before they were pleased. I received an unusual call. We would like to publish your book, Mr. Smith, if we can agree on a few things. By the way, this call is recorded for legal purposes. I'd never had a conversation as fascinating as this one. First, Mr. Smith, it is our policy to never publish a single book. We always insist on a mullet book deal, 2 minimum. Do you think you have another in you? Indeed, I did. I started thinking about other things I wanted to write when this first appeared to be true. I informed her I had one in the works already. Good. Send us a synopsis, and if we like it, you'll have your contract. Excuse me, but we haven't talked about money. She chuckled. Good, you're not a sheep. Send us the synopsis, and we'll talk money. I performed better. I forwarded the first 6 chapters to her. 3 days later, I received a packed manila envelope via UPS. The first envelope said read me first, and it came from the publisher. Congratulations, Mr. Smith. We have decided to offer you a contract. It is included. Get a lawyer, have him review it. If it is satisfactory, sign and return it. The minute we receive it, we will begin the process of getting your first book published. Call me after the 1st of the year, on January 4th or 5th, after 3 o'clock my time. There's a few things we'll have to cover that I prefer not to do on the net. Until then, the contract was only 2 pages long. I saw a lawyer in a different town. I was determined to keep it a secret. After reviewing it, he concluded it was simple. It's about as simple as it gets. You do this, they do that. Breach of contract if one of you failed to fulfill your obligations. Good luck. On the designated day, I gave a call. Mr. Smith, good to hear from you. I just got your contract. Now, general information. It will be about 9 months before we publish. We only release a specific number of books per quarter. It reduces competition and boosts sales. As you saw in the contract, the money side is pretty simple. We never give advances. It's a straight royalty deal. You're an unknown quantity, so the first book will be priced at $4.95 per download. You get $3 per hit, we get the rest. And you have to pay taxes on your share. You'll need to get a separate bank account just for us, and we'll send you a program you can load on your computer that will automatically deduct the proper amount and send it to the IRS. There's a program you can get that does the same for your state taxes. I suggest you get it. Now, if your first book is successful enough, we'll price the second at $7.95. If you do well and want another contract, the next book will be priced at $9.95. With me so far, please bear with me, this is a really crucial portion. The more hits you get, the more money we make. If I tell you to do anything, do it and don't fight. You understand? You mean nothing to us at this point, so don't develop sweet ideas or conceptions of grandeur, or we'll drop you like a rock. This is a company, and the objective is to generate money. I had the impression that a high school teacher had just given me the boot. Yes, ma'am, I understand. She became a little friendlier right away. Thank you. Now on to more pleasant things. We really like your book. It is our policy to feature 3 new writers every quarter, and you'll be one of them. We'll also release the first 3 chapters a month ahead of the published date, maybe get some orders before it's released. We're going to put it into general release and push it in our section for younger girls. The next one is a little more mature, so we'll keep it in general release. We estimate your first will be available September 1st, and we will be pushing it a month before. It is also our policy to never release 2 books by the same writer less than 6 months apart. If we didn't, you would basically be competing with yourself for readers. Now for some really good news. We're totally owned by Loveland Publishers, and they're second only to Harlequin and Romance Publishers. My best analogy is this. If we were baseball, we would be the farm system. It's our job to spot and develop talent. When you're good enough, if you're good enough, you get called up to the majors. In our case, if the amount of downloads for your books reaches a certain number, Loveland takes you. If that happens, you'll have to get an entertainment lawyer and an agent. The minimum return on a Loveland paperback is $100,000, and most do 2 to 3 times that. And that doesn't include movie rights. The right studio picks you up, and you could get paychecks with 6 zeros behind it. How does that sound? A little unreal, to be honest. I'd like to ask a few questions, if I may. How does the money end work? More importantly, how much do you think I'll make off the book? Just a ballpark figure. I heard the grin. I keep forgetting you're not a lamb. Realistically, it's hard to tell. As I said before, we've decided we'll put you in the featured writer section. That means you'll be one of 3 that are singled out. Again, the number of hits determine your income. I feel confident yours will do well, especially in the subgroup we're pushing you in. Teen girls are extremely loyal. You'll have a fan base by the time the second book comes out, so that one should double or triple the original numbers. Only time will tell. Realistically, you may make as little as $5,000 up to more than $50,000 on your first book in a year's time. Double that for your second book. I have a woman who has been writing for me for 8 years now. She usually puts out 3 books a year and averages between $160,000 and $200,000 a year. Not a bad income, wouldn't you say? It's not a bad salary at all. Before I ring off, we need to talk about your name. What's wrong with my name? She let out a sigh. It's a man's name. 98% of romance readers are women. They identify with women. We'd like you to write under a female name. There are certain words women identify with. How does Samantha Strong sound? Wasn't there an actress in the 80s with the same name? What kind of message would that send? I doubt if 12 to 17-year-old girls would know that. All I'm trying to do is get the readers to buy. After much debate, we decided to utilize my first initial and let them make their own guesses as a compromise. I strictly adhered to her instructions. She gave me one of her rare phone calls right after I had finished the second book and was in the final stages of editing. I was still determined to surprise Sheila, so I had asked her to use my cell phone so I could respond more quickly. Well, Larry, you've fulfilled your contract. I think you're probably the best writer I've come across in a long time. We'd like to offer you another contract, for 3 books this time, contingent on the numbers of your first novel. I hesitated. To be honest, I had no desire to work at this for a living. It was more of a pastime that I believed may provide some financial gain. I had the outlines for 5 more books in 3 spiral-bound notebooks on my computer desk, so I wasn't short on ideas. I'll have to think about that. Let's wait until the first book has been out for, say, 6 months, and talk again. She was taken aback. It seemed that no one had ever rejected her. It took her 5 minutes or so to realize that I was serious. When she bid us farewell, her tone was everything but friendly. The book was published on time. Before I looked at the account, I fought it for a week. It contained somewhat more than $3,000, indicating that at least $2,000 had been sold. 9,000 more were sold in a month. Giddy, I called my editor. Congratulations, your book was our top seller for a debut offering this month, and top seller overall. Judging by these figures, you may exceed 100,000 this year, before taxes. If you do, you'll be the only first-time writer to reach that mark. You may not get another contract from me. Loveland is paying attention. Remember what I said, if that happens you'll be making some serious money. She let out a sigh. I wish I could keep you. And a heads up, somebody from Lifetime read your book. Somebody high enough up the food chain to do something about it. We've had overtures, wanting to get in touch with your agent. Now would be a good time to get one, and that entertainment lawyer we talked about. After a few more minutes of conversation, I pledged to sign the 3-book contract as a token of my appreciation. It would maintain her prestige inside the company, and I would have a backup plan in case Loveland declined to sign me. Once more, our restored connection broke down. She became almost incomprehensible to me. I made an effort to be patient and collected. I tried to keep calm, but somewhere around the 200th tirade about some trivial matter, something gave way. Sheila, do me a favor, shut the hell up. I don't give a crap on the subject and I'm not going to debate it with you. In fact, I'm not going to debate anything with you, ever again. If you can no longer hold a civil conversation with me, stop talking. Good night. I stormed into the bedroom and shut the door behind me. That night, she never went to bed. When I arrived home, I was still really angry, so I made something easy that I knew she didn't like, ate it by myself, and covered the remaining portion. I'm hoping she still knows how to operate the microwave. As soon as she entered, I was reading. She peered into the kitchen. Rather than seeing her go into the living room, I felt it. Are you ready to have dinner? Think you can do that without getting childish? Her demeanor had not changed. I informed her I was done eating, and she came stomping into the kitchen, rattling plates. I poked my head through the door. When you get done, clean up after yourself. In a minute, she went from red to purple to pale. I stopped her before she could say anything. I meant what I said yesterday, Sheila. If it's not civil, it better not come out of your mouth. I've thought about it all day. We need some help, maybe counseling. I don't think we can get over this without it. I'd still love you, but you're not making it easy. Think about it, give me a decision tomorrow. Good night. I turned in for the night. I felt her sliding into the bed 3 hours later, but she made no attempt to touch. Upon rising, I observed the unwashed dishes. I had a difficult day at work because clients wanted delivery earlier than expected, vendors failed to fulfill, and I was tasked with clearing up confusion and putting out fires. I was happy to be back home. By 9, Sheila wasn't home. Although she occasionally stopped for a drink with pals, I didn't worry until 11 o'clock. None of her pals knew where she was, and she didn't answer her cell. As soon as she called, I was dreading the worst. Sheila, are you all right? Where are you? I'm at home, Roy. You're not making any sense, Sheila. I'm at home and you're definitely not here. No, I'm not at your home. I'm at my new apartment. I've decided we need some time apart. My mind was spinning. What are you doing? Trying to decide if I want to stay married to you. We don't get along anymore, and I don't know why. Maybe if we spend a little time apart we can fix it. Good night, Roy. I'll call you in a couple of days. She ended the call. When I tried again, the call went directly to voicemail. I was unable to move. I had no idea where to look for her, and she refused to speak with me. I surveyed the home. The majority of her clothing, a few photographs, and small trinkets she loved were all lost. I called the hospital where she works and begged to speak with her after a restless night. When I eventually reached her backup supervisor, she informed me that she had gone on a 2-week vacation. Oh well, so much for our Grand Canyon excursion. I was concerned. I pouted. She did not return calls for 5 days. Then, that evening, I felt a surge of rage so intense it made me afraid. Screw her. Do you want to engage in some gaming? I gave a friend-recommended attorney a call. She was meant to be cruel. I had an appointment at 4. She gave me a sympathetic ear. What do you want? Do you want to burn her down? Scorch the earth under her feet? Or do you want something gentler, a nice split, everybody goes their own way? Or do you want her back? It completely stopped me. It dawned on me that I had no idea what I intended to accomplish. I acknowledged that. She appeared to unwind. All right, I propose you start like this. File for legal separation. It'll get her attention and shorten your wait if you can't get back together. This will make her realize the potential consequences of her actions and talk to you. Now, has she taken any unusual amounts of money out of your accounts? For your safety, if she hasn't, I can get the accounts froze, or you could just withdraw half and put it in separate account for now. She continued for a short while longer, asking questions about retirement plans, investments, and whether we still owed money on our house. I was about to walk away after giving her the whole truth when it dawned on me. Something just occurred to me. I have funds in an additional account. It's there, even though I barely think about it or touch it. Now that I'm a client, I understand that you must maintain secrecy, but I'm going to ask you to promise me something. I hope you won't take offense. Before I finished telling her the story, she smiled, and I could see she was, just a little. That's unbelievable. It's you, R. Smith. After reading your book, my daughter was raving about it. Don't tell me anything, I'm in the middle of it now. How much money are we discussing here, then? Finally, I gave her a smile. I suppose telling you they all turned out to be gay and joined the touring cast of a Broadway show would ruin your day. Not really. As of last week's total, which is subject to daily fluctuation, it was approximately $72,000 after taxes. Not much, but it's increasing every day. In addition, my second book is out in 2 months. A little word of caution. This one seems much more mature, however I'm not sure how old your daughter is. She scowled as she considered. You'll have to declare your divorce, and probably the second one as well. It was written when you were still married, thus it's communal property, as I can hear you argue now. I just wanted to let you know. I turned to frown now. All right, she's the reason I started writing in the first place. I may sign a contract for 3 more books in the near future. What happens then? Her pen clicked, a nervous habit. My best advice, don't sign anything until you reconcile or divorce. If you divorce and sign, then she gets none of those monies. If you reconcile, it won't matter. Now, with your permission, I'll reach out to some contacts, try to find out where she is. If I do, should I have the papers served? I paused, then gave an affirmative nod. Someone rolled the die. Give the chips their proper place to land. And so on and so forth. She'd already stolen half, which helped fan the flames when I checked the accounts the next day. 4 days later, I tried to reach Sheila by phone, but her number was changed. Becky Wright then gave me a call. I located her. Her condo is only 5 streets away from the hospital where she works. Do you still want the documents served? Aw shucks, Skippy. And when they are, I want to be there. We came to a solution after she protested against it. I would watch it at her office while she taped it. She was smiling and wearing a much nicer outfit than she had been wearing during the prior few years with me, so it was actually rather humorous that they caught her on her way to her car. The young girl serving us, who appeared to be in high school, came over. Sheila Smith, are you? My goodness. The girl smiled again, but her expression changed to one of puzzlement as she tried to place her. As she handed her the documents, she declared, You've been served. Sheila's smile vanished, to be replaced by astonishment and finally rage. That garbage. Reaching for her phone, she attempted to make a call. Observing her when she discovered it dead was amusing. I'd canceled it the previous evening. She stormed off in her car, furious. Becky Wright grinned. Well, you got her attention. Let's see what she does. But I need to bring something to your attention. You don't get a condo like that overnight. She had been planning an exit for a while. That means she'd made a decision to leave several weeks before, at least. She spent her time on the phone going on probably 100 rants. I kept them all without replying to any of them. I simply kept the old phone so she would have a number when I acquired a new one. It had been years since we had a house phone. She began phoning me at work. She grew irrational when I gave her the first response. I hung up the phone and asked the receptionist to tell her that I would be happy to speak with her as long as she could maintain a polite demeanor. She went on a tirade and hung up on her after she gave her an explanation the first time. She called back 3 days later. She asked if I had a minute in a quiet voice. I closed the door to my workspace. "What do you want, Sheila?" After a little period of silence, there was a small cry. "How on earth could you serve me papers and do that to me, Roy?" All I wanted was a little time to myself to sort things out. I was not feeling very empathetic. "Poor Sheila, I'm giving you all the space you want. I filed the papers to make my life simpler. Now, either way it goes, I'm protected. Nice of you to take only half the money, makes it a lot simpler down the line." She was attempting to clarify. "I was afraid you would get mad and keep me from it. It's my money too." "Not anymore, you already got your share. I moved what was left, so don't try to go back to that well. I have to go, so tell me what you want from me." All I wanted to do was chat to you. Please exercise patience. Please. I resisted the growing rage that I could sense. "All right, Sheila, take as much time as you require. We can try again if I'm still here when you decide to return. However, I must ensure that you comprehend. This separation is not a pass to leave the marriage, see other people, and then return and claim, no harm, no foul, we were separated. There's no turning back if I even suspect there's another man involved. While you discover who you are, consider that." I ended the call. It took her 5 more days to call again. "What keeps you from calling?" "Well, Sheila, the main reason is that I don't have a phone number to reach you at. You're still on vacation till tomorrow, so my only point of contact is the hospital. I believe I will visit the Grand Canyon. I'll email you some photos." She broke down in tears. "Why do you make things so hard for me? I apologize for ruining our vacation, but I really needed this. However, you're spoiling it now. I wind myself worrying about you. Why do you feel like this?" I counted to 10 while holding my breath. "Well, let's observe. After 32 years of marriage, my spouse suddenly becomes irrationally angry, leaves while I'm at work without providing me with her whereabouts, and embezzles half of our savings. After some thought, I'm not sure why I'm so angry." Sniffles. "It's not necessary to be sardonic." I erred. I acknowledge it. Now content. I don't know what to do because the time I wanted to spend to clear my thoughts is now so messed up. I'll tell you what to do now, Sheila. Put down the phone. Since I'm not on vacation, I must go to bed. She must have been on a landline since she smashed the phone. Norbert asked me to give him a call back when I checked my messages the following day. I shut the door after entering the office. "Miss Nora, how are you this fine morning?" She was unwaveringly reliable. "Cut the cornpone, little Abner. Where's my contract? I spoke about my marriage problems." "Great, just ducky. Listen, you have a legal separation in place, right? Good. Check with an entertainment lawyer, but in my state any monies that come in after a legal separation are retained by the individuals, and the contract only calls for you to write the books. We won't expect the first one for 8 months. You'll be back together or completely apart by then." I urged her to send the contract and thanked her for the advice. For a brief moment after hanging up, she sounded genuinely human. "Sorry, Roy. I hope things work out for you." At WAC things were really starting to go south. We were dying from the recession. The orders had virtually stopped. We were called into a meeting by the owner. "We're going to take a 3-week break. We're working on some things. If even one of them bears fruit, we'll have a 6-month backlog. I'm going to keep a skeleton crew, mostly maintenance, to get everything in top shape." He continued for a short while before becoming quiet. That evening, I gave it some thought, and the next day, I submitted a request for a 2-week vacation that would start after the layoff. When I told the plant manager I wanted to take a small trip, he was taken aback but gave in. "You and Sheila have a good time." With a groan, I turned to walk away. I had not obtained an agent, but rather the attorney that Norbert had suggested. When I questioned, he replied that I really didn't need one at this time. He did include me, claiming it would give me even greater protection in the event of a divorce. I had him rent a place for me since I didn't want Sheila to know where I was. It was at a lake in the mountains, a spot I had enjoyed many years ago with Sheila. We stopped going there. He bought me considerably more housing than I required for a reasonable sum because of the season and the state of the economy. On 2 lots, 2 floors with a basement. It was located at a tiny cove's extreme tip. It had a gourmet kitchen, 5 bedrooms, a full gym in the basement, and a pontoon boat anchored at the pier. I adored it. Although it was on sale, nobody was purchasing it. They were eager to lease it to me for 3 months, which was far longer than I needed it, but I couldn't say no since the price was so good. The good news is that the lease was made out to my new corporation and did not contain my name whatsoever. Sheila gave me her new number and a message she left when she called. After 3 days, I gave her another call. "Roy, where are you?" I wasn't providing her with any unnecessary information. I took some time off. I think I'll try to find myself. She disregarded the quip. No, I mean where are you physically? Sheila, why does it matter? You planned to leave, leased a condo, moved your stuff and didn't have the decency to tell your husband. When were you going to tell me where you lived? Or were you? Doesn't matter. I'm returning the courtesy. Curiosity compels me to ask, have you found any resolution? I'm working on it. Roy, please don't try to hurry me. I think you should take all the time you need. But just so you know, I've set a limit. If you're still gone when I reach it, the separation papers turn to divorce papers. And before you ask, I'm not telling you when it is. The shrew returned. Damn you, Roy, if you think you can buffalo me. After hanging up, I didn't pick up for a week. I became comfortable in the home. A complimentary pass to the nearby country club, which has an excellent golf course, was one of the benefits. Even though I hadn't played professionally in years, I showed up, introduced myself to the management, had a few drinks at the bar, dined at the restaurant, and had a great time. I was at the pro store the following day, purchasing a lovely pair of shoes and clubs. Though I wasn't particularly good to begin with, I was happy to see that I hadn't lost much of my game after playing 27 holes. However, I enjoyed myself when playing 18 holes by myself and with a few other players. The condition of the course was superb for the time of year. The next morning, it hurt to move because I was so sore. That afternoon, I made the decision to clean the workout gear in the basement. After 3 weeks of starting out cautiously, I was pounding them for an hour each morning and evening. My golf game improved and I shed 15 pounds. I went to a barber and had my thinning hair cut off since I was tired of it. I'd always wanted a beard and mustache, so I grew them. When it arrived, I was taken aback because the hair was nearly entirely white. Sheila gave me 2 calls a week, but she never made any meaningful comments or suggested that we get together in person. She even begged my lawyer to help her locate me. She could honestly claim so, since she had no idea where I was. On our most recent call, I pressed the matter. I'm going to be home next week. I expect to see you. It doesn't need to be at the house. Pick a neutral spot we can agree on, and I'll be there. Refuse, and I turned my lawyer loose. She groaned and moaned, but in the end she gave in. She chose the priciest eatery in the community. I agreed, much to her astonishment. I returned to the home. It had an old, stale smell. The smell of home had left it. Since I didn't plan to stay that long, I didn't stock the refrigerator. To be honest, I never planned to move back there. If we reunited, it would be in a different place where we could make new memories free from the burden of the past. She arrived before me. I almost didn't know who she was. She had shed several pounds and changed the color of her hair. Although she looked great, up close I could tell that she had harsh lines on her face and a deeper frown than usual. That was not an expression of happiness. Her lack of recognition until I was close at the table pleased me. She didn't stand up, didn't provide an embrace. She sat there, gaping at the world. Roy, my goodness, I almost didn't recognize you. When did you shave your head and grow a beard? Not that it doesn't look good on you. No, I don't love or miss you, they are just observations of how I seem. I complimented her again, focusing on her hair color and weight loss. She gave it a careful touch. I wanted something a little different, you know. We placed a request. I was hungry, but she was content to nibble on her food. While we were enjoying our coffee, I asked her if she had yet to discover who she was. Her head was hung. Don't put too much pressure on me, I'm still working on it. Not yet. Exactly how are you tackling it? Extended periods of self-analysis, counseling, guidance. How are you going to proceed? Well, I've been talking to friends, and they've been giving me advice. Is it all? Are these individuals in the workforce? Are there any of them qualified in any field that you would find useful? I am reminded of an ancient proverb: if all they are offering you is their ideas. Like jerks, everyone has an opinion, and they're all full of bullshit. Sheila, the time is running out. She sniffled as I sat there, watching my love for her begin to die, till I could take it no more, and I paid the bill, bid her good night, and went. She had never once asked to contact me, and when I touched her arm, she appeared to recoil. I went back to the lake cottage right away after working a week at the end of my vacation and taking 2 weeks off. I spoke with my attorney before I went. The official separation's duration is almost up. What action do you want me to take? File. Are you certain? I exhaled. I'm positive. I can always stop it if something happens to make us different. And, just for fun, hire some detectives to keep an eye on her for about a week. I want to know what her brand new existence is all about. We had a brief conversation about my writing. My first book had sold over 100,000 copies online in less than 3 weeks, making it the fastest-selling book on the site ever. My second book had released and had received 20,000 downloads in its first 3 weeks at 75. My writing account was doing extremely well. My entertainment lawyer was in negotiations with Lifetime, but he was also receiving approaches from movie studios. He ended up in a mini bidding war, and he skillfully set them up against each other, bringing the total to 800,000. After giving it some thought for a week, I resigned my job and put in an offer on the lake house. Sheila and I had previously been comfortable, but now that we had decided on something, I was going to live there. When Becky called, I knew what had to happen. I got the investigator's report. What is stated there? Her hesitation was evident in her voice. You need to come by the office. I waited a little while in the solitude. That awful. One more quiet moment. Yes, if you have time for me, I'll be there first thing tomorrow morning. I'll set aside an hour. 10 all right. His name is Morgan Feldman. He's a doctor at her hospital. He's 61, just a little older than you. She gave me a photo. An unremarkable man with a hair fringe surrounding an almost hairless skull. It did not impress me. He's married, 4 children and 5 grandchildren. His son is a doctor at the other hospital here in town. His wife is a top executive at Harmony Enterprises and travels a good bit. She has the money in the marriage. She presented me with a photo of a middle-aged, attractive woman. Sheila would never be in the same class as me, even though I found her attractive. Made me ponder. He's a serial womanizer. Your wife is just the latest. The average length of his dalliances is about 6 months, so your wife is close to her expiration date. He's very good at cheating. We put an operative on the cleaning crew at the hospital, and he snapped a few pictures as they ducked into empty rooms. I don't think they did anything past kissing. There wasn't time, although our man got one photo of them when they thought the curtain in the room was closed. Same at the condo. They never enter together. Usually she goes out, and half an hour later he comes in. He rides 3 floors past, then comes down on another elevator. If there's anyone in the hall, he walks by. If he's clear, he lets himself in with his own key. A few minutes later she returns. He usually stays from an hour to half a day. Once overnight. They're never seen together in the hall, but we do have a shot where she opens the door after he leaves to hand him a briefcase. She looks up and down the hall, then opens her robe, giggling, and shuts the door. How did you get all this? She smiled. Money and luck. One of our operatives showed up at the condo complex, identifying himself as a representative of the security service they use, offering to audit their security system and make suggestions for improvement, purely as a courtesy. He had them call the security company, where he was directed to a man who vouched for him. He made copies of the last month and a half of security footage, and then his team examined it. The security company actually got some business out of it, making several upgrades. You've already filed. What do you want me to do now? I paused to reflect. Expedite it. Offer her a straight 50-50 split. She can have the house. I don't want to live there anymore. If she doesn't want it, we'll put it up for sale and split the money. If she fights it, tell her to get a damn good lawyer. I'll drag it out for years if I have to, bleed her dry. And tell her to expect a package from me that will explain things. She examined me closely. I have to advise you against doing anything reckless or stupid. You know we can't use the condo footage, legally. I'll keep the operatives digging. Maybe they can get someone to verify the affair. I did, in fact, grin. She probably didn't anticipate it. All I'm going to do is send her a photo and a short message. That picture was of her flirting with her partner. I had scrawled large red characters all over it. Time expired. It was sent to the hospital by me. 3 days after she received the photo, she began receiving phone calls. A few witnesses saw her collapse with it in her hands, according to reports, which sparked rumors. She took a 2-week medical leave of absence from work. I didn't think she would have the guts, but she began phoning me 3 or 4 times a day, sometimes even more, pleading with me to speak with her. When I received the last message, I lost it. She said it was an isolated incident and that she had done it because she was missing and lonely. I gave her a call back. Before she could even say hi, I was all over her. A one-time thing. You mean one time just for that day, right? Was it just a one-time thing all the other times? A good doctor losing a step, staying power not what it used to be. Surely he knows there's pills to fix that. I had committed the dates of his visits to memory, particularly the evening he spent with her. When I was done, she was stuttering and gasping. Give it up, Sheila, you're stone cold busted. Admit it, if you weren't sleeping him before you left me, you were planning on it as soon as you got settled into your love nest. When I shut her down again, she was attempting to explain. Give it up. I know the hospital knows about your little adventure. The only reason you both still have your jobs is there's no proof anything happened there. What do you think the chances of continued employment would be if I showed up with some photos of you playing kissy face with the good doctor in some of the empty rooms and hinted strongly about a lawsuit? In the words of Bruce Willis, happy trails. While you still have a chance to win something, Sheila, agree to the terms. Sheila, I'm going to the hospital in 3 weeks, and then I'm having a little show and tell with Mrs. Feldman. Let me know, and please don't call me back. Give my attorney a call. I hope you have a terrible, meaningless, and loveless remaining years, Sheila. Goodbye. Well, that last one was a little excessive, but I was really hurting. I closed and stored my old cell phone in a drawer. I got a call from Miss Nora after my offer on the lake house was accepted, and I became a full-time writer with a mortgage, having completed the first draft of my 3rd novel. We have a few months to polish it, but even though it's not as good as the other 2, it's still readable. Have you had a divorce yet? I'm working on it. All right. I apologize, and I really do. I want you to give things some thought. Your writing is excellent, yet very restrained. Oh, those dirty cells, remember that phrase. It's a proven fact that you can earn a lot of money writing about it. I was laughing when I said, Miss Nora, for the right amount of money, I'll write something so hot it'll melt your panties off right at your desk. I had never heard her laugh so hard before. If you do that, Roy, we'll both become quite wealthy. I want you to visit the 4 websites I sent you. There are channels intended for relationship. Try them, watch a couple of the stories, and get a sense of it. After 3 weeks, I received a call from Becky. She desires a face-to-face meeting and for you to attend counseling together. I'll try to minimize the amount of sessions if you agree. If it comes down to it, it will appear excellent in court. In relation to that, allow me to make a trade suggestion. You consult, attend therapy, and if you decide you still want a divorce, we proceed straight to arbitration instead of court. It's something I suggest. It's quicker, less expensive, and if you accept it, you won't be able to appeal the arbitrator's ruling in court. Additionally, it's typically far less bloody since they do a fantastic job of keeping everything under control. As in a court of law, nobody wins in arbitration, just so you know. In the end, it will be a mutually agreeable agreement where you both win some and lose some. Are you willing? I took a moment to consider it. This is the easiest way, right? It's not, Roy, I assure you. Yet, it's the best and typically the least expensive. It's something I suggest. Becky, where do you fit in? Once you agree to arbitration, I'm basically out, unless you want me to advise you on an informal basis. Okay, carry out the task. However, you are still my attorney, and I will consult with you. She thanked me and laughed. Roy, that is indeed the best approach. Furthermore, I will continue to be happy to occasionally send you a bill. How is the writing coming along? I informed her that my 3rd was complete. Watch a few and let me know what you think. Whether or not, I'm not sure whether that kind of thing offends you. Call a meeting. My comment, we will see in part 2 what OP does, and also see what his wife does. Comment down below, sub and bell if you like these simple ones, and I will catch you in the next one.